Everyone in the village believed Hollow Hill was cursed, but nobody remembered why. The oldest families only repeated the same warning that had survived for generations: never stay on the hill after sunset, and if you hear knocking underground, run without looking back. Children laughed at the story until they grew old enough to notice something strange. Every few years, a person vanished without leaving footprints, without leaving a goodbye, and without any sign that they had ever existed except in the fading memories of those who loved them. Liam had heard those stories since childhood, but he never believed them. He had studied history at university and considered every legend nothing more than fear wrapped in superstition. When his grandmother died, she left him a small iron key attached to a faded note that read, "Lock the last door before it remembers your name." Everyone assumed the note was written during her final days when illness had clouded her mind, but Liam could not stop thinking about it. The key was ancient, blackened with age, and covered with tiny symbols that no language expert could identify. One evening he discovered an old map hidden inside his grandmother's attic. The map showed a tunnel beneath Hollow Hill ending at a place marked only with a drawing of a single door. Curiosity defeated common sense, and before dawn Liam packed a flashlight, extra batteries, a camera, and enough supplies for one night, reached the hill just before sunset and found the entrance exactly where the map promised. Hidden behind thick roots was a narrow stone staircase descending into darkness. The air smelled damp, and every step echoed as though someone else walked exactly one step behind him, turned several times, but the tunnel remained empty. After nearly 20 minutes, the passage opened into an enormous underground chamber supported by cracked pillars covered with strange carvings. The carvings did not show people or animals, they showed doors, hundreds of doors, some open, some broken, some floating in empty space. Above them all was the same sentence repeated over and over in different symbols. The camera suddenly turned on by itself. The screen displayed a message that had never existed before: "Do not photograph the ones who are waiting." Liam laughed nervously, assuming it was a software glitch, but when he tried to switch the camera off, it refused. The lens slowly rotated toward the darkness behind him. He followed its direction and froze. Figure stood perfectly still between two pillars. T was too far away to recognize, yet it seemed familiar. As soon as Liam blinked, the figure disappeared. The silence became heavier with every breath. Then came the first knock. 3 slow knocks echoed beneath the floor. Boom, boom, boom. The sound was not above him or around him. T came from somewhere below the stone itself. The knocks stopped. Then a whisper drifted through the chamber. Someone finally brought the key. Liam spun around, but nobody answered. The flashlight flickered for a second before returning to normal. He followed the map deeper into the ruins until he reached a corridor lined with hundreds of identical doors. None had handles, none had locks, except one. At the end of the corridor stood a black iron door with a single keyhole exactly matching the key from his grandmother. The closer he walked, the colder the air became. His breath formed white clouds, and frost spread across the walls despite the underground heat. Just before reaching the door, he noticed scratches covering the floor. They looked like marks left by thousands of desperate fingernails dragging toward the exit rather than toward the door. His heartbeat accelerated. Should have left, but curiosity whispered louder than fear. Inserted the key. The lock turned with a metallic groan that echoed endlessly. The door opened only a few centimeters. A voice from the darkness sighed with relief. "It has been so long." Liam slammed the door shut immediately, but something on the other side laughed softly, not loudly, not violently, just patiently. "You already opened it, once is enough." The walls trembled. As dust rained from the ceiling, the corridor behind Liam changed. All the other doors slowly vanished until only the black door remained. Ran back the way he had entered, but every passage led him again to the same door. No matter which direction he chose, it waited for him. The flashlight dimmed. Then the camera began taking photographs by itself. Each picture showed Liam standing in front of the door from impossible angles. As if someone watched him from inside the walls. Then one photograph appeared that stole the air from his lungs. It showed his grandmother standing beside the door, smiling sadly. Behind her stood dozens of people with empty black eyes. Recognized several missing villagers from old newspaper articles. They were all smiling too. A sentence slowly appeared across the image. "They opened it for someone else, now it is your turn." Suddenly the second knock echoed, but this time it came directly from the other side of the door. Boom, boom, boom. "Liam," the voice whispered, "your grandmother promised you would return the key." His blood turned cold. He had never spoken his name aloud. The voice continued, "She locked us away, she knew she could not hold the door forever." The key suddenly twisted by itself inside the lock. The door opened another inch. A freezing wind burst into the corridor carrying thousands of whispers speaking different languages all at once. Some cried, some begged, some laughed. One whisper sounded exactly like Liam's own voice. "Please don't leave me here." Without thinking, he looked through the narrow opening. Inside was not a room, there was an endless city beneath a black sky. Fragile towers leaned in impossible directions, and every street was filled with silent people who stared upward without blinking. None moved until Liam made eye contact with one little girl. She smiled. Then every face in the city slowly turned toward him together. At that exact moment the door burst fully open. Darkness rushed into the corridor like floodwater, but instead of covering the floor, it flowed upward across the ceiling. The city vanished, and the corridor returned to silence, except Liam was no longer alone. A man wearing clothes from another century stood beside him. "Close it," the stranger whispered. "Now." Before Liam could react, the man was dragged backward into the darkness by invisible hands. His scream ended instantly. The key fell from the lock onto the floor. The whispers stopped. For several terrifying seconds nothing happened. Then footsteps echoed behind Liam. Not one pair, hundreds. They walked at the same speed, never faster, never slower, picked up the key and ran. The footsteps followed, reached the main chamber, but every carving on the walls had changed. Now each stone door carving was open, and dark figures were stepping out of them. The figures had no faces, yet every time Liam looked directly at one, it borrowed the face of someone he loved, his mother, his best friend, his grandmother. They all smiled without blinking. "Stay with us," they repeated together. He refused to answer. The tunnel leading back to the surface appeared impossibly far away. As he sprinted toward it, the ground shook violently. Stones collapsed behind him, blocking the chamber. Then came the final knock, not underground, not behind him. The knocking came from inside his own chest. Boom, boom, boom. With every heartbeat, the iron key grew warmer until it burned his hand. A memory entered his mind that was not his own. He saw his grandmother as a young woman standing before the same door decades earlier. She was crying as she locked it while another man remained trapped inside. He smiled before the door closed and said, "Never let them remember your family." The vision ended. Liam understood. The creatures beyond the door could not escape unless someone from the bloodline that sealed it returned with the key. That was why every generation someone disappeared. They had all been called back. He reached the staircase and climbed desperately toward daylight. As the first rays of sunrise touched the entrance, the whispers became screams. The invisible footsteps stopped. The freezing air disappeared. Liam collapsed outside, breathing heavily. The hill stood silent once again. Threw the key into the deepest lake he could find that same afternoon and never told anyone what had happened. Months passed, and life slowly returned to normal, until one rainy evening he received a small package without a sender. Inside was the same iron key, still wet, along with a fresh note written in handwriting identical to his own. It contained only one sentence: "You forgot to lock the last door." That night, just before midnight, 3 slow knocks echoed from beneath the floor of his bedroom. Boom, boom, boom. Liam did not move. He did not breathe. Then the bedroom door, which he had locked before sleeping, slowly began to open by itself, and someone standing in the darkness whispered with perfect calm, "Thank you for bringing the key home." The end.